Matthew chapter 20. This story throws light on the kingdom of heaven. A landowner went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay each worker the usual daily wage and sent them to his vineyard. He went out again at about 9 in the morning, and seeing others idle in the town square, he said to them, "You also go to my vineyard, and I will pay you what is just." So they went. The owner went out at midday, and again at 3 in the afternoon, and he made the same offer. Again he went out at the last working hour, the 11th, and he saw others standing around. So he said to them, "Why do you stand idle the whole day?" They answered, "Because no one has hired us." The master said, "Go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last and ending with the first." Those who had gone to work at the 11th hour came up and were each given a silver coin. When it was the turn of the first, they thought they would receive more. But they too received 1 silver coin. On receiving it, they began to grumble against the landowner. They said, "These last hardly worked an hour, yet you have treated them the same as us, who have endured the heavy work of the day and the heat." The owner said to one of them, "Friend, I have not been unjust to you. Did we not agree on 1 silver coin per day? So take what is yours and go. I want to give to the last the same as I give to you. Don't I have the right to do as I please with what is mine? Why are you envious when I am kind? So will it be. The last will be first, the first will be lost." When Jesus was going to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside and said to them, "See, we are going to Jerusalem. There the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and they will condemn him to death. They will hand him over to the foreigners, who will mock him, scourge him, and crucify him. But he will be raised to life on the 3rd day." Then the mother of James and John came to Jesus with her sons, and she knelt down to ask a favor. Jesus said to her, "What do you want?" And she answered, "Here you have my 2 sons. Grant that they may sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your kingdom." Jesus said to the brothers, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup that I am about to drink?" They answered, "We can." Jesus replied, "You will indeed drink my cup, but to sit at my right or at my left is not for me to grant. That will be for those for whom my Father has prepared it." The other 10 heard all this and were angry with the 2 brothers. Then Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of nations behave like tyrants and the powerful oppress them. It shall not be so among you. Whoever wants to be great in your community, let him minister to the community. And if you want to be the first of all, make yourself the servant of all. Be like the Son of Man, who came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life to redeem many. As they left Jericho, a great crowd followed them on the way. 2 blind men were sitting by the roadside, and when they heard that Jesus was passing by, they began to call out, "Son of David, have mercy on us." The people told them to keep quiet, but they shouted even louder, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." Jesus stopped and called out to them and asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said, "Lord, open our eyes." Jesus was moved with compassion and touched their eyes. Immediately, they recovered their sight, and they began to follow Jesus. Matthew chapter 21. When they drew near Jerusalem and arrived at Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying, "Go to the village ahead, and there you will find a donkey tied up with its colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says something to you, say that the Lord needs them, and that he will send them back immediately." This happened in fulfillment of what the prophet said, "Say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king comes to you in all simplicity, riding on a donkey, a beast of burden with its colt." The disciples went as Jesus had instructed them, and they brought the donkey with its colt. Then they threw their cloaks on its back, and Jesus sat on them. Many people also spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut leafy branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The people who walked ahead of Jesus and those who followed him began to shout, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was disturbed. The people asked, "Who is this man?" And the crowd answered, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee." Jesus went into the temple and drove out all who were buying and selling in the temple area. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the stools of those who sold pigeons. And he said to them, "It is written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer,' but you have turned it into a den of thieves." The blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and Jesus healed them. The chief priests and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things that Jesus did, and the children shouting in the temple area, "Hosanna to the Son of David." They became angry and said to Jesus, "Do you hear what they say?" Jesus answered them, "Yes. But have you never read this text? From the mouths of children and infants you have perfect praise." So leaving them, he went out of the city and came to Bethany, where he spent the night. While returning to the city early in the morning, Jesus felt hungry. He noticed a fig tree by the road, went up to it, and found nothing on it but leaves. So he said to the tree, "Never again bear fruit." And immediately the fig tree withered. When the disciples saw this, they were astonished and said, "How did the fig tree suddenly dry up?" Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, if you had the faith and did not doubt, not only could you do what I did to the fig tree, but you could even say to that mountain, 'Go and throw yourself into the sea,' and it would be done. Whatever you ask for in prayer full of faith, you will receive." Jesus had entered the temple and was teaching when the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the Jewish authorities came to him and asked, "What authority have you to act like this? Who gave you authority to do all this?" Jesus answered them, "I will also ask you one question. If you answer me, then I will also tell you by what authority I do these things. Where did John's baptism come from? From heaven or from people?" They discussed this among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Then why did you not believe him?' And if we say the baptism of John was merely something human, we have got to beware of the people, for all consider John to be a prophet." So they answered Jesus, "We do not know." And Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." Jesus went on to say, "What do you think of this? A man had 2 sons. He went to the first and said to him, 'Son, go and work today in my vineyard.' And the son answered, 'I don't want to.' But later he thought better of it and went. Then the father went to his other son and said the same thing to him. This son replied, 'I will go, sir.' But he did not go. Which of the 2 did what the father wanted? They answered, 'The first.' And Jesus said to them, 'Truly I say to you, the publicans and the prostitutes are ahead of you on the way to the kingdom of heaven. For John came to show you the way of goodness, and you did not believe him, but the publicans and the prostitutes did. You were witnesses of this, but you neither repented nor believed him." Listen to another example. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a fence around it, dug a hole for the winepress, built a watchtower, leased the vineyard to tenants, and then went to a distant country. When harvest time came, the landowner sent his servants to the tenants to collect his share of the harvest. But the tenants seized his servants, beat one, killed another, and stoned a third. Again, the owner sent more servants, but they were treated in the same way. Finally, he sent his son, thinking, "They will respect my son." But when the tenants saw the son, they thought, "This is the one who is to inherit the vineyard. Let us kill him, and his inheritance will be ours. So they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Now, what will the owner of the vineyard do with the tenants when he comes? They said to him, He will bring those evil men to an evil end and lease the vineyard to others who will pay him in due time. And Jesus replied, Have you never read what the scriptures say? The stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and we marvel at it. Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of heaven will be taken from you and given to a people who will produce its fruit. Whoever falls on this stone, he will be broken to pieces. On whomsoever this stone falls, he will be ground to dust. When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard these parables, they realized that Jesus was referring to them. They would have arrested him, but they were afraid of the crowd who regarded him as a prophet. Matthew chapter 22. Jesus continued speaking to them in parables. This story throws light on the kingdom of heaven. A king gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to call the invited guests to the banquet, but the guests refused to come. Again, he sent other servants, instructing them to say to the invited guests, I have prepared a banquet, slaughtered my fattened cows and other animals, and now everything is ready. Come to the wedding. But they paid no attention and went away, some to their farms and some to their work. Others seized the servants of the king, insulted them and killed them. The king was furious. He sent his troops to destroy those murderers and burn their city. Then he said to his servants, The wedding banquet is prepared, but the invited guests were not worthy. Go instead to the main streets and invite everyone you find to the wedding feast. The servants went out into the streets and gathered all they found, good and bad alike, so that the hall was filled with guests. The king came in to see the wedding guests, and he noticed a man not wearing a wedding garment. So he said to him, Friend, how did you get in without the wedding clothes? But the man remained silent. So the king said to his servants, Bind his hands and feet, and throw him into the outer darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. The Pharisees went away, considering how they could trap Jesus by his own words. They sent to him their disciples along with members of Herod's party, saying, Master, we know that you are an honest man and truly teach God's way. You are not influenced by others, nor are you afraid of anyone. So tell us what you think. Is it against the law to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus understood their evil intentions and said to them, Hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin with which you pay taxes. They showed him a silver coin, and Jesus said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose name?" They answered, "Caesar's." Then Jesus replied, "So give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." Astonished by his answer, they left him and went away. That same day, some of the Sadducees came to Jesus. Since they claim that there is no resurrection, they questioned him in this way: "Master, Moses said that if a man dies without any children, his brother must take the wife and have a child, who will be considered the child of the deceased man. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman, but he died. Since he had no children, he left his wife to his brother. The same thing happened to the second brother, and to the third, until the 7th. Then, last of all, the woman died. Now, in the resurrection of the dead, to which of the 7 will she be wife? For they all had her as wife." Jesus answered, "You are totally wrong, because you understand neither the scriptures nor the power of God. First of all, in the resurrection of the dead, neither men nor women will marry, but they will be like the angels in heaven. As for the resurrection of the dead, have you never reflected on what God said to you? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." He is God, not of the dead, but of the living. The people who heard him were astonished at his teaching. When the Pharisees heard how Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they assembled together. One of them, a lawyer, questioned him to test him. "Teacher, which commandment of the law is the greatest?" Jesus answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the most important of the commandments. The second is like it: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets are founded on these 2 commandments." While the Pharisees were assembled, Jesus asked them, "What do you think of the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They answered, "David's." Jesus then asked them, "Why did David, inspired by God, call the Messiah Lord? For David says in a psalm, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand, until I put your enemies under your feet.' If David calls him Lord, how can he be his son?" No one could answer him, not even a word. From that day on, no one dared question him anymore. Matthew chapter 23. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of the law and the Pharisees have sat down on the chair of Moses. So you shall do and observe all they say, but do not do as they do. For they do not do what they say. They tie up heavy burdens and load them on the shoulders of the people, but they do not even lift a finger to move them. They do everything in order to be seen by people. They wear very wide bands of the law around their foreheads and robes with large tassels. They enjoy the first places at feasts and the best seats in the synagogues, and they like being greeted in the marketplace and being called Master by the people. But you do not let yourselves be called Master, because you have only one Master, and all of you are brothers and sisters. Neither should you call anyone on earth Father, because you have only one Father, He who is in heaven. Nor should you be called leader, because Christ is the only leader for you. Let the greatest among you be the servant of all. For whoever makes himself great shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be made great. But woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door to the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter it, nor do you allow others to do so. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You devour widows' property, and as a show, you pray long prayers. Therefore, you shall receive greater condemnation. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel by sea and land to make a single convert. Yet, once he is converted, you make him twice as fit for hell as yourselves. Woe to you, blind guides! You say, to swear by the temple is not binding, but to swear by the gold of the temple is binding. Foolish men, blind men, which is of more worth, the gold in the temple, or the temple which makes the gold a sacred treasure? You say, to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the offering on the altar is binding. How blind you are! Which is of more value, the offering on the altar, or the altar which makes the offering sacred? Whoever swears by the altar is swearing by the altar and by everything on it. Whoever swears by the temple is swearing by the temple and by God who dwells in the temple. Whoever swears by heaven is swearing by the throne of God and by Him who is seated on it. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You do not forget the mint, anise, and cumin seeds when you demand the tenth of everything. But then you forget what is most fundamental in the law: justice, mercy, and faith. You should have done these things without neglecting the others. Blind guides, you strain out a mosquito but swallow a camel. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You fill the plate and the cup with theft and violence, and then pronounce a blessing over them. Blind Pharisee, purify the inside first, then the outside too will be purified. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful in appearance, but inside there are only dead bones and uncleanness. In the same way, you appear religious to others, but you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness within. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the monuments of the righteous. You say, had we lived in the time of our ancestors, we would not have joined them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So you yourselves confess to be the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. And now finish off what your ancestors began. Serpents, race of vipers, how can you escape condemnation to hell? Therefore, indeed, I send prophets, wise men, and teachers to you. But some you will murder and crucify, some you will flog in your synagogues, some you will drive from one city to the next. Because of this, you will be accountable for all the innocent blood that has been shed on the earth, from the blood of the upright Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Barachiah, whom you murdered between the altar and the sanctuary. Truly I say to you, the present generation will pay for all this. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you murder the prophets and stone those sent to you by God. How often would I have gathered your children together, just as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you refused. Look, your house shall be left to you deserted. I tell you that you will no longer see me until you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Matthew chapter 24. Jesus left the temple, and as he was walking away, his disciples came to him and pointed out to him the imposing temple buildings. But he said, You see all this? Truly I say to you, not one stone will be left upon another here. All will be torn down. Later, when Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately and asked, Tell us when this will take place. What sign will be given us of your coming and the end of the world? Jesus answered, Be on your guard, and let no one mislead you. Many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they will mislead many people. You will hear about wars and rumors of wars. But do not be troubled, for these things must happen. But the end is still to come. Nations will fight one another, and kingdoms oppose one another. There will be famine and earthquakes in different places. But all this is only the beginning, the first pains of childbirth. Then they will arrest you, they will torture and kill you. All nations will hate you, for you bear my name. In those days, many will be led into sin. They will betray and hate one another. False prophets will appear and mislead many. And because of such great wickedness, love in many people will grow cold. But the one who holds out to the end will be saved. The good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the world, to all the nations, a testament to all peoples. Then will the end come. When you see what the prophet Daniel spoke about, the idol of the invader set up in the temple, then let those in Judea flee to the mountains. If you are on the housetop, do not come down to take anything with you. If you are in the field, do not turn back to fetch your coat. How hard it will be for pregnant women and for mothers with babies at the breast. Pray that you don't have to flee in winter or on a Sabbath, for there will be great tribulation, such as was never known from the beginning of the world until now, and is never to be known again. And if that time were not to be shortened, no one would survive. But God will shorten those days for the sake of His chosen ones. Then, if anyone says to you, "Look, the Messiah is here," He is there, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and wonders so great that they would deceive even God's chosen people, if that were possible. See, I have told you everything ahead of time. So, if anyone tells you he is in the desert, do not go. If they say he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For the coming of the Son of Man will be like lightning, which flashes from the east even to the west. Wherever the body is, the vultures will gather. And later, after that distress, the sun will grow dark, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the skies, and the whole universe will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. As all the nations of the earth beat their breasts, they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with the divine power and great glory. He will send His angels to sound the trumpet, and they will gather His chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the earth to the other. Learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches grow tender and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, know that the time is near, even at the door. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But as for that day and that hour, no one knows when it will come, not even the angels of God, not the Son, but only the Father. At the coming of the Son of Man, it will be just as it was in the time of Noah. In those days before the flood, people were eating and drinking and marrying until that day when Noah went into the ark. Yet they did not know what would happen until the flood came and swept them away. So will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. Of two men in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Of two women grinding wheat together at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Stay awake then, for you do not know on what day your Lord will come. Obviously, if the owner of the house knew at what time the thief was coming, he would certainly stay up and not allow his house to be broken into. So be alert, for the Son of Man will come at the hour you least expect. Imagine a faithful and prudent servant whom his master has put in charge of his household to give them food at the proper time. Fortunate indeed is that servant whom his master will find at work when he comes. Truly I say to you, his Lord will entrust him with everything he has. Not so with the bad servant who thinks, "My master is delayed," and he begins to ill-treat his fellow servants while eating and drinking with drunkards. But his master will come on the day he does not know, and at the hour he least expects. He will punish that servant severely and place with him with the hypocrites. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew chapter 25. This story throws light on what will happen in the kingdom of heaven. 10 bridesmaids went out with their lamps to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were sensible. The careless bridesmaids took their lamps as they were and did not take extra oil. But those who were sensible took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom delayed, they all grew drowsy and fell asleep. But at midnight a cry rang out, "The bridegroom is here, come out and meet him." All the maidens woke up at once and trimmed their lamps. Then the foolish ones said to the sensible ones, "Give us some oil, for our lamps are going out." The sensible ones answered, "There may not be enough for us and for you. You had better go to those who sell and buy some for yourselves." When the bridegroom came, the foolish maidens were out buying oil. But those who were ready went with him into the wedding feast, and the doors were shut. Later, the other bridesmaids arrived and called out, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered, "Truly, I do not know you. So stay awake, for you do not know the day nor the hour." Imagine someone who, before going abroad, summoned his servants to entrust his property to them. He gave 5 talents of silver to one servant, 2 talents to another servant, and 1 talent to a third, to each according to his ability, and he went away. He who received 5 talents went at once to do business with the talents and gained another 5. The one who received 2 talents did the same and gained another 2. But the one who received 1 talent dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and asked for a reckoning. The one who had received 5 talents came with another 5 talents, saying, "Lord, you entrusted me with 5 talents, but see, I have gained 5 more." The master answered, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Since you have been faithful in a few things, I will entrust you in charge of many things. Come and share the joy of your master." Then the one who had received 2 talents came and said, "Lord, you entrusted me with 2 talents. With them I have gained 2 more." The master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Since you have been faithful in little things, I will entrust you in charge of many things. Come and share the joy of your master." Finally, the one who had received 1 talent came and said, "Master, I know that you are a hard man. You reap what you have not sown and gather what you have not scattered. I was afraid, so I hid your money in the ground. Here, take what is yours." But his master replied, "Wicked and worthless servant, You know that I reap where I have not sown, and gathered where I have not scattered. You should have deposited my money in the bank and given it back to me with interest on my return. Therefore, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who are unproductive, even what they have will be taken from them. As for that useless servant, throw him out into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When the Son of Man comes in his glory with all his angels, he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be brought before him, and as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, so will he do with them, placing the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. The king will say to those on his right, Come, blessed of my Father, take possession of the kingdom prepared for you from the beginning of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me into your home. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to see me. Then the righteous will ask him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and give you food, thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to see you? The king will answer, Truly I say to you, just as you did it for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you did it to me. Then he will say to those on his left, Go, cursed people, out of my sight into the eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you did not give me anything to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me into your house. I was naked, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. They too will ask, Lord, when did we see you hungry, thirsty, naked, or a stranger, sick, or in prison, and did not help you? The king will answer them, Truly I say to you, just as you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me. And these will go into eternal punishment, but the just to eternal life.